Blessings. Welcome forward to Reasonings right here at the Tree of Life. I'm your host, Jerome Sage Butler. It's yet another wonderful experience to come forward and share words of inner stirrings, inner clarity, I hope, and a whole lot of divine inquiry, right? Or just general um, inquiry, seeking through a process of self-analysis how best to be the most optimal self. So I just want to extend a hand of care, of genuine peace and true solidarity with those who are suffering during these times of mass hurt and suffering. And there are many things which I know are coming to bear upon your daily activities because of these things. And these heavy weight on your thinking, on your experiences, is causing a whole lot of shift. So I'm asking you to hold it a little bit more, adapt, adapt, and then the sense of survival mode won't be so frantic. You'll be able to see a path through the now confusion. Because, in all essence, this too shall pass. Right? And it's a particular time. Oh, don't mind the smoke, it's my morning fire. In this particular time in the earth, I notice there are a lot of people who are vying for the attention of the masses to bring them to a certain level of understanding as to how they see it, right? And a lot of these people are very brilliant people. They're very spirited and sometimes very well informed. It's not a critique of their brilliance. It's just an observation that with so many pundits, with so many would-be leaders, are sources of inspiration, it kind of makes me want to think that some part of the hierarchy of how we are structured in society is kind of, coming apart to a degree, and it will bring more into focus my argument currently, my offering today, which has to do with jealousy and the dominance hierarchy. And we are gonna get right into it because my preamble was, it started here, then went here, then came here. Jealousy and the dominance hierarchy. I have noticed through my own experience that there could be arguably 9 archetypal personalities manifesting as the human beings we know. There are many psychologists who will agree to some degree. Some might say 7, and some might have another way of putting the same argument. So what do I mean by 9 archetypes? 9 basic intrinsic personality types. 9 types male, 9 types female, 9 types human. So the 9 types human refers to whether you're male or female. And then 9 times male, 9 types female refers specifically in gender contexts, because those are also equalized and oppositely defined as well too. So why am I looking at the archetypes? I'll lay out my argument and it will become very clear as to why I am looking at the archetype the archetypes and then starting with the argument, jealousy and the dominance hierarchy. So these archetypes, they do make up the hierarchy. So each of these are very well defined personalities. Let's just say they are, let's say, 50-50 dominant, 50-50 submissive, 50-50 agreeable, 50-50 disagreeable. So within the context of these 9 archetypes, let's just say half will be agreeable, half will be disagreeable. So about 4.5 agreeable, 4.5 disagreeable, 4.5 dominant, 4.5 submissive. It will all come together. So each individual is defined as being one of these archetypes. And so because each individual is defined as one of these archetypes, both from within the submissive to the dominant, there is a space in which your outlook, your way of life, your belief system, your attitude, your expression fits into one of these archetypes. There are some people, I won't define all the archetypes, but there's a reason why I'm going to do a slight definition for some, a slight reference to some rather. There are some people who are admittedly very jovial personalities, so jovial that within the context of organized, developed societies, some people say, well, you can actually make a living from your jovial nature. You are hilarious, you are comedic. You could literally be a comedian. And so that is an archetype that is both masculine and feminine. It's not gender specific. Because we're not looking at gender specific archetypes. I just mentioned that to give a context. So you have the jovial personality. And then we're going to balance that out to just give, you know, an opposite. You have the overly aggressive personality. Now, the overly aggressive can be defined in more than one context, right? You could have the aggressive go-getters, so there's no violence to it. You can have the aggressive violent people, or the competitive types, right? So you and I will know, and 1, 2, if we had 100 hands, very, very aggressive types, go-getter types, competitive types, the types who will never back from a fight, the types who will always stand up for themselves, the types who will make you laugh until you roll. There's also the intrinsic geniuses, the smart guys, or the regular Joes, you know, the simple guys and gals, you know. So, just to establish the archetype. So where does jealousy come into that? So because society is structured in such a defined manner, and the human idea of the ideal is to really master your archetype. I'm getting to it. We are ideally situated in our psychologies around the idea of self-definition. The more you are aware of who you are, knowing thyself, the more assertive you become, whether in a way of applying yourself to your chores, to your task in a certain mental and a physiological process, or you go about it in purely attitude that enhances your presence, and you use that aura to state your claim on what you believe is your right. Your archetypes begin to define themselves as you come into the awareness of who you are. Individuals then recognizing that, oh, by the way, I am not the only dominant person here. I am not the only jovial person here. I'm not the only man that makes the ladies fall over and roll. They laugh till they're silly. But previously, in my neck of the woods, I was. In my family, in my community. But in the broader context, you recognize that there are others who have a different kind of a vibe, an essence, a swag, a sway to their attitudes of being exactly who they are. Many people cannot be satisfied with how they have come to see themselves, because born Babylon, me not play. Some people are not satisfied with how they have come to see themselves, and to recognize themselves. So there is this issue where they say to themselves, I need to be the best of who I am. Sounds wonderful. But here what happens. Instead of turning that energy within the context of self, many turn that context outside and say, I got to top J. I got to top C. I got to bring my stuff to that level where nobody sees and nobody hears. Some people justify it by saying the context is, that's the point. The point is dominated by a particular person. So if you want to rise up the ladder of success to that heights of the hierarchy, to that presence of your dominance, you got to outwit, you got to master, you got to manipulate, you got to literally compete on your playing field, level or unlevel, in whatever means your mind conceive. And then here comes this constant competitive battle. Some people, they say, I'll never be as good. So they're not inclined to want to improve. So they're inclined to tear down, to pull down the pillars of what holds up what is the standard within the dominance. And because a whole lot of sense of well-being is connected with one being the master of one's archetype, you have all these individuations of the archetype of comedic expressions or competitive expressions battling each other for the space of the one. For in the end, they view their reality as that there will have to only be one. So a homogeneous view of reality is highly exposed within this context. So you now recognize, well, you're smart. You got an understanding of what life is, and you have a method by which you are thought-provokingly, maybe through scientific methodology, analyzing your ideas, your premises, to find fact, to find actualities, to find eternal patterns, infinite patterns. But you're not satisfied, because the moment you recognize across the avenue, across the aisle from you in the broader space, there's another individual who also has a very beautiful argument, has it together, has it well laid out, who's also garnering attention. There is this need to, especially if that person is in the field and the area that you are, there's this need to refute, to argumentatively battle it out. I remember many years ago when I was in my 20s and deeply steeped in my philosophical poetry. And at that time, I was interested to know how I was categorized. So after being at the University of the West Indies, which is a major university, I wasn't a student, but I had been through a lot of the programs, and a lot of the philosophers that were known to the Rastafari tradition, well, the most famous one anyway, was there as a fellow in residency at Taylor Hall, and he was at West Road. And so Martin Plano, who was really the great philosopher behind a lot of the pronouncement of Bob Marley, and the way Bob Marley's life came into the physicalization as Rastafari, Martin Plano had a lot to do with that. And so in my mid-20s, about 27, 28, 26, 27, I started being around Martin Plano. And being around Martin Plano brought with it several of the most famous personalities and characters. Muta Baruka, just to name a few, and all the great minds all across the Caribbean. Rastafari of every ilk and divine persuasion. So I was interested to know how I was viewed. Because in the regular context, these people didn't really want to listen to me, and I wasn't given that much space of understanding. So there was a moment I got presented in front the big poets, and I guess somebody was trying to tell these poets like Muta and those that, you know, there's this poet we want you to see. And I'm gonna say it because it don't make sense I play smart. They think I'm crazy. So they wanted to know if Muta would agree. So it was a presentation at the Social Sciences Lecture Theatre and Faculties of Arts and Humanities. I think that they switched the faculties around, so pardon me if I mess it up. Arts and Humanities, I think it is now. And I made my presentation. There was Professor Jean Small of Edna Manley College at the time. She was the one that introduced me. Had a very strange name, Yakuba Lakbe, because you know Lakbe is my middle name, and Yakuba was a name I put together, right? So I went and I did my poetry about my anthropology of where I was and we came and how and all these things, and Muta came up to me and said, "Nice poem." And he said, "But you're not crazy." You know? I was like, you know, I was like, okay, you know. It was encouraging. He said kind of prosaic still, you know. Yeah, it was kind of prosaic, you know, but the idea was good. So I would start to listen to his program. So I didn't realize that, you know, I had a different kind of a flair to it, you know, a little philosophical, and so I didn't get the satisfaction that I needed. But I know people were viewing me like the crazy one. So I got that understanding that, yeah, you know, Sage is a crazy poet, you know. So I wanted to learn now what are these ideologies that Rastafari possess. So I started being on the university campus, being around, marching up and listening to the different philosophies. But because I was a junior, a little person, I wasn't really allowed to speak. Not that they would stop me from speaking, but where was I going to speak from? I was, you know, very much observant, and I began to understand some of the things that they were saying. So here's the thing now. There's a particular person that bridged the gap and is going to bring this whole argument together. There's a student of Martin Moptana who is a teacher at Tree of Life called Nabi Natural. Nabi Natural is the first one to recognize me as a mystic or a philosophical poet. And he first said to me, "Do you know what you're saying?" I said, "Not fully, but everything I say is from inspiration, and this has been my life. I've had this weird life, or if you want to say mystic life, and so I speak from that experience. And my friends, when I was younger, just into college, I would say, read this book, because you sound like this guy." So there was some context where I felt like there was something real about me. So the issue was why I had to meet Nabi, and why Nabi had to say that to me was I had to know. You know what I had to know? There were more poets that were like me. Listen. You see, because I was doing this kind of I'm like a crazy poet. I'm like a mystical poet. I roar and I this and I that, and I grabbed attention a certain way. Plus I had these interesting thoughts. But I tell you why I did things that way. Let me tell you why. When I first went to the Poetry Society, it was about the year 2000. I went in 99, but I just went to see. When I went to present, it was about the year 2000 for the first time. So when I went and I did my poem, the announcer, the president, Tommy Ricketts, he called me a preacher, and the sentiment resounded in the audience. I didn't like the sentiment because at the time I was just leaving the Adventist church, and I did not want to be connected with a church or religious-based thought. So I was like, I'm not a preacher, right? So I said, I'm saying some stuff here. Why aren't they listening instead of trying to categorize me into this religious thing? So I got real angry and started, roaring on them and acting all wilding out on them while spitting some deep philosophical truths or understandings or dichotomies or theories or beliefs, right? So for a while there, from the time Mutabaruk had said to me, Mad, to this point was about maybe a year, and I had developed a little following at the university. Because first I tried to do this show on campus because I believed I could, and but it wasn't the time, and but somebody gave me the opportunity to perform there a couple of times. It was nice, and there was quiet sessions at Taylor Hall, and I liked it, and it was developing this kind of a rapport because I guess these minds were open to listen to stuff. Besides, I was quite theatrical too, so I developed a following, a swag, an attitude. So when I came to Edna Manley now, because I was at Taylor Hall, when I came to Edna Manley now, I was at school now, and the Poetry Society was there, and I was going on all wild and mystical, and thinking I was the top of the thing now because I didn't like the preacher thought. So I really wanted to erase that thought from people's mind, and I was getting some attention doing it. People started saying to me, I'm mostly this in Jamaican, but you'll understand what I mean. And this is for the Jamaicans, because it's not only foreigners listening to my channel. People them started to me say, yeah, go on like you think you're the most mystical around here. You think you're the maddest around here? We don't mother poet than you. You know Nabi? You think you're mad yet? You think you're mystic boy? We don't mystical poet than you. You just a come. You're a boy. Behave yourself. So I was like, I want to know this Nabi. So when this Nabi Natural, I was at Shell Life, came up to me now and was telling me that, do you know what you're saying? You know what I mean? And all that. You know, I was like, I wouldn't feel that. So Mr. Nabi Natural had 9-dimensionality. I was a homogeneous thinker, I was a singularity man. Everything had to be harmoniously one. So every time it's an argument, every time it's an argument, every time it's an argument. 9 ways to explain the one thing, I would say. 9 ways to express the one thing. Him say 1 way can't express the 9 things. Start me. You understand? So there was this clash. And it was a clash to see who was the owner of the mystical archetype of a poet. Because here is Roaring Sage, here is ancient Nabi Natural, right? Who had the audience of the learned, the esteemed under his wings, and I had the young upcoming people who were excited around poetry. And it was a clash. Our arguments would tower through the school, and I'm not saying that for ego pampering. It would tower through the school. We were warned because we were thugs. I mean, I was thugs. He worked in the school, right? You know what I mean? Come on, you couldn't really you couldn't run up on me, for real. So they had to diplomatically try to say, Kings, your voices are echoing across the school, and I know if you were one of those persons who used to hear this, you can put a comment in the box to let them know it's real. Echo through the school, because me and Nabi had to fight out on the ego realms to see really, am I the one that owns this archetype? And if I was a weaker man, jealousy would have occurred, because guess what happened? Nabi worked at the college. He worked in the theater arts department at the school, so all of the props and everything, he was the man. So he was such a genius in that department, and I got to see that they were saying, if you wanted it to rain, this is Joel Ellis from my old group, Judge Children, used to say, Nabi's the man. If you wanted it to rain on the stage in one spot, you know, one drip every 3 seconds apart, Nabi's the man. So I knew he was a master there, right? But it took a little while before I broke out of that competitive to start being humble, to start learning from a master of my archetype. And so then I begin to yield, abate the ego. I wasn't jumping to say, you know, his philosophy was equal to mine, or I was going to join his way of thinking. I was just saying, I can learn from Nabi, because he's like a contradiction. You know, he's this older man with beautiful younger girls, and he's in the culture. It doesn't make sense, and it really came to a point where it was going to be a clash. So let me just be honest, there was this wonderful girl, you know, and she was his secretary, right? Because he worked at the school and he had these links, and she went to University of the West Indies, and she's like one of the most gorgeous girls. She won beauty pageants there. She was like head of departments, head of student bodies there. And every time she'd come on the ends of her life, she'd blow my mind. But she would work with Nabi, and I'd be like, what did she see in Nabi? Because Nabi was, at that time, you know, Nabi wasn't like he's physically attractive. He's just brilliant in the mind, right? But she was always around him, and I just wanted to get her attention. And after a while, when I started getting her attention, I started getting on his nerves now, because, you know, I was getting on in his way, because he wanted to write his books, and I was like, just be like, I need to get with this girl, and you know. And it is just an ego fight. I'm telling you, this thing real. The jealousy fight was alive in me. You understand me? And long and short is, I got a girl, right? And he said to me, some things are bigger than what we think they are. Because he could see more. So he'd be like, he got it. Though he didn't agree that I should have. But hey, we all have some bad ways. Let us not lie. Not justification. So, for a while, because of that bad feeling, I said to myself, I needed to kind of come to grips with what I'm becoming. So I said, no, man, that was kind of wrong. Nabi was the man that's him. I messed that up. Get your own, brother. So I was like, yeah, get your own, brother. Started my own kind of shows and started getting the respect of people now. Because, I'm like loving myself now. So in 2002 there, we started a show, me and this young lady, and we started another level of what I was doing, and I began to appreciate more now. So Nabi now was the entrance now to meet Martimo Plano, because Nabi, right, was one of those who cared for Martimo. So being around Martimo now and seeing now a different archetype of a personality like I'd never seen, but seeing all these other brilliant types around this man, learning, medical professionals, professors, and I was like, wow, these are all brilliant people in their own right, and each one somehow wants to show how brilliant they are, and I would admit that, but they're not competing for the space of their own self. I was just coming out of that. There was this very brilliant girl I met, and to this day, the two most brilliant women I ever met was there, right? Can't mention their names because I love to leave names out, but as I'm saying it, one of them, she's so powerful. To this day, she does want me to just say her name, but I won't say. But anyway, these are the two most brilliant women I met. But this one who wants me to say her name was the most metaphysical and present person I'd met within my age group. And I never had such an experience with a woman, by the way. That she was so electromagnetic, she could pick up the thoughts. She was so brilliant, she could argue at the highest level of plausibility, and she literally was just battering me one day. Because I was doing my poetry and again trying to be up in my little, dominance ego to show that I was important. And she didn't like it, and she was saying, you don't know all that much. You think you are that? And I was like, really? What do you think? And she was beating the crap out of me. Like literally whapping me to shreds. And the other smartest woman I ever met in my life, she was a medical student, right? Medical student, she was in surgery. She was studying to be a surgeon, and she just said, that's enough to her. She said, that's enough. You've kind of hurt him enough now. That's enough, I get it, You're smart, yeah? He was out of line, but that was kind of too much. And she was like, who are you? And then this other one that I know is the most brilliant person I've ever met, she decimated that girl. It's like, and both the argument opened up my mind again to non-competitive understanding of the archetypes that are similar. So that was around Nabi, around where Nabi took me. So I was learning from Nabi now. I was beginning to understand all of that intuitive knowledge that I had. I was beginning to understand perspectives and argument, ways of presenting that which was intrinsic to me, that which I knew naturally. So I came out of the jealousy and the competitive nature. I had my own little theatrical ways and my ways of using my facial expression, my sound expression, everything to bring an audience. But then could I really top Nabi? Because Nabi was the human tree of life that literally put himself in Christmas lights and plugged himself in and did the astral script of the very 9-dimensionality of our being. While Sage was talking about astral man walking through the constellation, that's me. Atoms and molecules. I was talking there, but Nabi was painting a divine picture. So we are mystical in our understanding of this space, this sphere, this vortex, this terra firma. But I had to understand there's no need to compete with a fellow brother of your archetype. I learned so much from Nabi. I learned so much from what he has taught me. Now I'm seeing the mystic Bob learning. and Bob is advancing into his guru nature. If Bob was to compete with me, I'm sure he did a little, which he would admit to at first, but then complement is better than compete. So when the complementary, consciousness begin to awaken you, you learn why compete to be the master of your archetype. There are going to be masters before you, and they're going to be masters after you. So mastery is a welcome club of self-acceptance, of knowing thyself. So as people then begin to use their knowledge of the experience of the thoughts they've been having, the experiences they can carve from their thoughts, from their physical ability, from their mental ability, from the way they're able to manipulate their environment, they begin to master the archetypes. So as they begin to master the archetypes of their environment, now they begin to become noticeable character. There is no one that is as humble, as peaceable as this personality. But then there always going to be more humble character that will draw attention, or as humble characters that will draw attention, that would have great arguments, that would have great followings. So in this day and age, as I see that the contextual situations, we accept that the master of all the archetypes ought to be the master of our existence, and how we design the structure of our societies that way. And how now I see that there is an age that is upon us that is not homogeneous but heterogeneous, that is nowhere near the nine dimensionality in reality, how Nabi would say it, but just the essence that there is this multiplicity of contexts is opening up, even in quantum physics of the understanding of a multiverse. The multidimensionality, nine-dimensional, right? Nabi would tell us by the 9 portals into the body. You understand it? In and out of the body. And so, these might seem trivial, but they do add up to 9. And as we examine these understanding of who we are and we ascend into the knowledge of self, what sense is there to be jealous of another? Because another might have a little bit more of a curve and a little bit more of a spin on that delivery. Or that person, that woman is a little bit more beautiful, she dominates her space, is a little bit more eloquent, is a little bit more elegant, or she's a little bit more slick, precise and precision oriented than even the finest swordsman. Why is there a need to fight, to be jealous, if you cannot destroy or you don't feel equal in your own comparison? These jealousies based upon the dominance hierarchy destroys the very experience of understanding the complementary nature, the heterogeneous nature of life, that there is always going to be others like yourself, both on the most humbling spectrum and on the most aggressive spectrum. There's always going to be human beings which excel at being exactly how you are. They're not you, and that is a masterful knowing. That when you know yourself, it doesn't matter how I present my information. I could never present my information as how you present your information, and therein lies the intrinsic blessings within our archetype. We are uniquely different, but we are also very much uniquely alike. And so, because within our physical designs, there are a lot of people out there that are 5'9", 4'9", 4'11", There are a lot of people out there who are 6 feet, right? There's a lot of people out there with 6'1", 6'8", 6'7", right? And there's a lot of people out there with the range of, somebody who's 6'7", who's also 6'7", and maybe they can throw a ball 300 meters, 300 yards, 400 yards. And maybe that's just brilliant if you are 4'9", that you probably don't have that range, but it's just average if you're 6'7". So each archetype, there's always the space that we are the masters of. And if I throw a few inches a little bit more than you, it's just a few inches, it's a few microns more. If you check it, milliseconds separate the fastest humans alive. Because the fastest humans alive practically run their races in exactly the same order, basically, maxing out at the same speed. Microns different. Milliseconds, for those who want to say that. Different. So, there is no one dominant. There are many dominant. There's no one soft power, submissive power. There's many. It is the intertwining of the multiplicity of the archetypes of our experience. So, if you're seeking to be the master of your archetype, you're gonna have a very hard fight, because every human being you encounter, and some, remember, some are cross gender, so every man or woman you encounter who have that energy as you do, those inclinations, those attitudes, in the sequences that you do, if you do not learn to be self-accepting, to be at peace with yourself, however brilliant you are, however simple you are, however masterful you are, you're gonna have a highly competitive life wrought with a whole lot of back and forthing, to and froing, whole heap of struggles, without enough time to truly appreciate what it is you're all doing that for. When you're overly absorbed to dominate the space, to dominate the archetype, to dominate the hierarchy, you lose touch with the greater essence of all things come together for the greater good. There's so much brilliant minds, and if all of them strive for a standardized version of what being smart is, we would all be suffering from a lack of true brilliance that could actually help us to move further in our understanding of ourselves as living beings. It's beautiful when there are smart folks who do not think like Jerome, who has no reason to think like me. It is absolutely awesome, because I truthfully can learn something. Learn this. And as we now look at why it is sometimes that people have these issues with people who they perceive as being better than them, it's surely because there's a similarity, there's a similitude in the personality, and that is why they're feeling hurt. That's their archetype. But beautiful, as I said, that I feel a wonderful, beautiful, smart girl, and she's saying she's swamped by so much other beautiful, smart girls. She's wondering, is she cursed? Couldn't she just be around 3? And that makes her feel not so smart, not so beautiful. What I gotta say is, maybe you should step out of the circle of such beautiful girls just for a second and see that all beauties, like I'm saying, so equalizes, the differences are insignificant. But it only matters when you're looking outside. Remember my argument? When we look inside, we find joy. So I gotta say to you, look in at what makes you who you are, what makes you present your argument, your quantum entanglement paper different from the other person, from the other beautiful woman within the clique. What makes you do it different? Do you have a little snivel at the end of your statements? You know, are you a little jovial? All might be jovial, but could they all be jovial in the same way? Maybe you joke over the figures, they joke over the possibilities, they joke over the probabilities, and maybe you joke over saying, well, this stuff is all real. Or you joke over saying, well, this is all crazy anyway. Find the uniqueness, that little micron difference, because it is there. If you really need it, it's there. And it is worth your knowing. Because if it makes you feel at peace knowing that, as brilliant as you are, as wonderful as you are, you need to self-validate. You need to remember that. Because if you don't self-validate, you're going to get into the context of constantly saying, I need to compete to have that peace of being, that peace of mind, that accolade, that achievement. And the greatest achievement is to self-know, is to know thyself. So some people say, well, this is the path to success. And I would say it's certainly not the path to success, because a lot of people have the accolades, but success eludes them. So what is success? The first premise of success is a functionality. It's a process, a way of being, a way of starting things, going all the way through, and completing things in the knowing that the start and the finish are related, are quantum entangled, and hence it brings a absolute release, fulfillment. Because the process of you becoming successful at any given thing in its truest sense, is a process of you being successful in being. So how can we be successful in being? The first level of success that should be achieved, as I said, as I'm saying, is in being. Many people do not want to know who they actually are. What is the intrinsic faculties, facets that make up my physicality, my mentality, my emotionality, that differentiates me, defines me, or gives me a modus by which I can differentiate myself, define myself, make myself agreeable or disagreeable in multifaceted of discernment. What is it truly? These things has to be examined within the context of who we are. In your quiet time, in relation to the time you got your ass whooped on the ball field, on the court, physically beaten, girls when you were outclassed in the beauty contest, when you were outsmarted in a spelling bee. These are moments to check yourself, to check to see, is it possible the thing that is within me, most uniquely me, I'm trying to hide, avoid, and trying to standardize to fight for these dominant points in the hierarchy? And so I'm losing myself thinking success is a point, is a shifting myself, formalizing myself into a form that is not the form of I am. The first level of success is success in being. You have to truly be yourself and be successful at it, accepting your nuances. I know I have issues in certain ways and areas of my life. I am no hero. I'm no savior of my own soul, though I am the practitioner of my own soul. So therefore, I learn, I choose to, from the experience of others to aid my experience. So when I find others like me, I listen, I learn, I see how it is that there are indifferences that is complementary to my knowing, to my understanding, to my learning. So I'm always trying to find out, what is this really about me? And when I'm finding it out more and more, I do have a temperament which a lot of people don't understand, right? And that is just to me. And it makes me, when I put it in a focus level, do these videos with a certain level of responsibility to my audience, to not BS people, right? But that same attitude, when you know me, you gotta be careful, because you have some people who, they see you doing these things, and because they're jealous, they're smart too, but I've never seen a channel that they do that I should go and see and be able to critique the information. Because when I go onto channels and I see the information, I don't critique the channel, I don't critique the person, I might not agree, right? I critique the arguments, and a lot of times I do it in myself, and sometimes around my friends I do it with my friends. But I don't go leaving nasty comments or trying to go on their inbox and say shit. Who does that? Well, you does that. You does that. You understand me? But give thanks to the people who don't do that. Who, when you send a message, it's a beautiful message. It's an inquiry. It's a thought-provoking question, right? Not judgmental arguments, and then they expect you to entertain them. You think I'm that smart that I would entertain a smart mouth being disrespectful? Wow. I always say, have a channel of your own and espouse the information. Don't bring your ego-tripping, competitive, argumentative foolishness to me. I'm satisfied in my reality. Look around you, man. It's bush, man. Leave me alone, man. I'd say. Woo. Accept who you are. The nuances, the things that you're tripping about. Really, the things that you're over there tripping about, feeling so bad about, is what's so beautiful about you. And that's why you're not comfortable. That's why you're still going for a standard. And the standard was already you. It was already you. Accept the beautiful you that Yahuwah made you to be. In Christ Jesus, in Yeshua. And stop complaining and argue about things that are not really significantly important. So what does it matter if you are smarter than me? Or you are as smart as me? Or you have a better argument than me? You think I'm going to abandon myself to be you? Kuri. Kartin. Taru. Come on. Be sensible. Be sensitive to your own self. Be successful in being who you are. That's what's most important. Once you're successful in being you, then you would understand that there is complementary existence. All of our brilliances matter. My friend Dubmaster Lynch, we chose not to compete but to be complementary and be in a group together, you would say all the stars shine at the same time. So for those who say, no, it's my time to shine, you got your time to shine because I want to master the archetype now. I want to be the baddest dancer. I want to be the baddest singer. I want to be the baddest philosopher. I want to be the most mystical poet now because you had your chance. Really? Look up. All the stars are shining at the same time. Spirit agrees. Dub master, Spirit agrees. All the stars are shining at the same time. So please, brilliant archetypal masters of being, be master of being, be successful in being you. Until next time, like, share, subscribe. Share Life Television Network. Give thanks for the brilliant gift you are. Give to yourself, give to your community, give to your nation. But more than all, a gift to yourself to experience the absolute brilliance, the archetypal brilliance of you, the awesome divine.